Today's video, this is a very highly requested topic that's confused a lot of people. Ruuvi Tags, and part of this video I'm going to show you how you set them up. So basically I wanted the extra information here. Now how you do that, there is a hack. You can download this hack and it's called GUI Mods. So it's GUIMODS, guys, GUIMODS. And in today's video I'm going to show you how you set this up with the GUI mods and how you install these Ruuvi tags. Now these Ruuvi tags are Bluetooth sensors. You can go to Ruuvi, that's just RUUVI.com. They're based in Finland, and if you purchase over, I think it's over 100 euros worth, you get free postage. So I ordered 4 of these. Not only do they measure your temperature, they also measure the humidity, which is mighty handy to know. And all that is shown on a graph. So I can go back up to 6 months and see what the humidity is over the last 6 months inside my vehicle, or inside my fridge, inside my freezer. If you wish, you can have one in the freezer as well, which I do in my case, and ambient as well. So they're mighty handy, not just for your forward driving, you can use them at home as well. These Ruuvis, you can download their own free app, and in that app you get very similar information, so you can set one in your house, and they've got quite a decent range as well. You can pick out quite a range. They're waterproof, so depending which one you got, some of them you can actually get they can submerge in the water. So I'm using that one inside the freezer. Now the one that you submerge in the water, it doesn't pick up the humidity. So for these Ruuvi tags, in order for them to pick up the humidity, they need to have a little opening here where you can see there's some type of felt there. Okay, now this is still classed as waterproof, but as long as you do not make that saturated wet more than 30 seconds, so inside the fridge is perfectly fine. Just make sure you don't have it sitting flat and water can drip in on the top. So ideally you want to mount it like that. So if it's slightly damp, it's okay. But that there measures your humidity. Now the difference is that you can buy a similar one, same one as this, but doesn't have that. It's fully enclosed, so it doesn't have that. So because it doesn't have that, it doesn't have the humidity. But I find that's a good one to use inside your freezer. My Dometic upright compressor fridge, the freezer's at minus 22.8 degrees. Now these have got a range from minus 40 degrees Celsius right up to 80 degrees Celsius that these will monitor. And they're accurate to within 0.1 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to show you today how you set that up, how you install that. Now there is a hack that you can hack the software and then add additional information, as you can see here. So what that means is that basically what used to show up before is just basic information. Now what I can do is I'll get an image of what it was like before, and I'll superimpose it on here so you can see it to compare it with now. So now with this hack, as you can see, I've been able to add all these temperatures down here. So just at a glance I can check the temperatures. I can check to see what my battery is doing. This one here is a DC system, which is the 12 volt side of things. As well as that is the additional information you got here. If I click on that, it also comes up at this additional screen. And I'm going to explain that graph to you when I set this up. See, if I click on this one, and the current limit is 4 amps. You can adjust the limit, or how many amps is drawn from either shore power or generator. So for example, if you're running a smaller generator and you're running something like a much bigger appliance, then this is going to bog your generator down and overload it, and it will shut down. Well, you can tell this to only draw so many amps from that generator, and then the rest it will get that what it needs in supplement. On top of that, it'll come from your inverter on your multiplus. I'm going to do a separate video on that, guys. I won't get too technical in that. Now you can adjust these to how you're liking. Here in Australia we're using lower amperages here to what some are using in in America would be used to. A lot of you are used to seeing 50 amps, 25, 30 amps and so on. But you're running 120 volt. Here in Australia we're on 240 volts, so our amps is not as high. So maximum generally we will have is about 15 amps. Most of the time households 10 amps. I've got it set at 4 amps at the moment. That's just to decrease the charge rate that's going into the battery. So for example, in this case, all I have to do is just click on that button once, click on whatever I want charge, accept new, and it'll accept. And if you go in here, the middle one, you can see that's the inverter, and it's the same. From here you can turn it on, off, you can put on inverter only, you can put on charger only. And again, it also shows the graph here as well. And the same thing, I don't have that graph set up on here, but it's also got your AC loads as well. And another additional screen here you can add is this one here. This is a great screen to have as well. As you can see, it actually shows all six of my temperature sensors are all shown on here. It's showing the AC loads, AC mode, charger only, so I can click on that. Okay, it's telling me that it won't do it because the digital multi-control is connected. If I disconnected that, it'll give you an option to turn this on and off. So we've got a screen capture on my computer here, and I'm going to show you the step by step, the first thing you need to do right through to the end, so you can get that screen on your Cerbo GX that I just showed you in the intro video. Now in order to do that, we have to make sure we are running firmware, at least firmware 2.80 on our Cerbo GX. So make sure your Cerbo GX is connected to your network, whether it's via the Victron 4G LTE dongle like I'm using, or via Wi-Fi, or via a direct connection to a network card to your router. Now, I suggest to do this on the Cerbo GX itself, but it can be done through the portals. I'm going to bring up the remote console. So the remote console is basically a duplication of what you see on the screen. Your Ruuvi Tag temp sensors that I showed you, that needs firmware 2.80. Just go for 2.80 anyway. It's got some extra features. Even if you don't have the Ruuvi tags, that's well worth installing. Now, to make sure we have got the update, so what we need to do now here is go into the settings. Now, in your case, settings is going to be right down the bottom. So you need to scroll down the screen right down to the bottom and you'll see settings. So once we get settings, now when you install GUI mods, it gives you an option to have the settings right up the top, which I think it's a good thing, and I think by default it does that. So click in settings, and then we want to click in firmware, and then we want to make sure that your firmware version, I see is version 2.81. I believe there is a 2.82. You go to online update and please check. There we are, press to update version 2.82. Once you've done that, grab yourself a little USB dongle. Right click on it, format it. Now, this is the website you need to go to get your GUI mods. I'm going to put a link to this down below. You can go through here and it shows you all the additional updates. For example, he's got the screenshots of the overflows. You can see different setups. It's a setup without the temperature monitors, etc. You can browse around and have a look at that. Also have a good read in here, guys. There's a lot of information here to read, particularly the README file. But if you choose down below here, scroll down below and you'll see the README file for GUI mods. Now, go through, and I suggest to you, before you go any further, guys, go on this website and have a read through this GUI mod. Even though it might be well over the top of your head, as you're installing this, you're going to start understanding more of what they're saying here. So a lot of this is all to do with the configuration. Right guys, the next thing you want to do then is let's scroll right down the bottom, scroll right down till you see installation. Now this is a critical step. You have to make sure you download the correct file. Don't go down the bottom here and download this one here, because following instructions here, it requires that Setup Helper is installed first. So Setup Helper is, I might have explained it before, Setup Helper is that package manager. Okay, that package manager then actually gets installed on your Cerbo GX. Once it's installed, you'll find it in the settings of your Cerbo GX. You scroll right down the bottom under Input Output, there'll be a package manager just under there. Then you click on there, and then from there you can install GUI mods. And I'll show you how you do that. It's very simple. Once you see how it's done, you'll be amazed. Wow, that was just so simple. So it's very critical now that you actually click on this, where if you can see my mouse pointer is circling on this github.com/quindrum/setup helper. So click on that, guys. Now what we need to do, if you want to go through, have a read through here, it explains it a little bit more here. We want to scroll down to the bottom till we get to the installation readme file, I should say, the readme file. What we want to do is a blind install. So as you can see, it's a blind install. But before we do that, this is the file we need to download. So what you'll need is the package that's called venus/data.tgz, which you see right here. Now bear in mind, in the future, that link could change. So do go on the GitHub site that I'll put a link to this site, and make sure you read through there just in case it's changed. Because guys, this site has just recently changed. Okay, this has just recently changed. So the venus.data.tgz used to be found on the first page that I showed you before. But now you've got to click on the Setup Helper link, which takes you to another page. And in there is where you find the data that you need to download. So all we need to do to download that is to click on it. Then we create a folder anywhere on your computer, on your desktop, just called GUI Mods Install, whatever. Now, it's very, very important, do not unzip that folder. That's a lot of people get confused with that. A lot of people ask, and I've noticed on the Facebook groups, etc., and people are messaging me, do I need to unzip this folder? Well, I've installed this package a few times now, and not once have I unzipped it. So you leave it as is. It will do all the work for you. You do not have to do anything. So leave that as is. Very important you leave it as is. I don't know what happens if you'll unzip it. You may run into some issues. It may work the same. I don't know. But in the instructions, it does not say to unzip it anywhere that you read in the instructions. So I suggest to follow the instructions as it says here and leave it as is. Now, next thing, once you've done that, grab your trusty little USB thumb drive. In my case, I've got an old 32 gigabyte thumb drive. Then what I want you to do, plug that into a USB port on your computer. And once it's up, next thing I want you to do, right click it and format it. Okay, format it. Now ideally format it as a FAT32. That's what I've done. I've formatted as FAT32. That's how it worked. In case of a PC, I don't know what happens if you format it as an NTFS. It may not recognize it. Okay, so I've formatted as a FAT. So just do a quick format. That's all you need to do. That's fully formatted. That's it. Now open it. Now bring up your folder that's got that file that you just downloaded, the venus.data.tgz file. Remember, do not uncompress it, do not unzip. Add that to your thumb drive. And that's it. Now, next thing we need to do is to take this thumb drive to the Cerbo GX. Have a look on these three USB ports here. So you need to select one of these USB ports. Now you have to make sure you select either one of these two. So you can see the number 1 here, the first one. So if you're looking at your Cerbo GX from the front, you want to pick one of the first two ports from your left, the nearest to this edge here. That one or the second one, because the third one here is used as a data, it's not used as a data, sorry, it's used as a power. So it's for powering your HD monitor's touchscreen. So when you get your HD monitor touchscreen, it comes with two cables that run off the end of it. One's the HDMI for the signal to go through, and another one's a USB port that powers your HD screen. In order to do that, it uses this one here, and Cerbo GX has set up that one as a power port. So it looks like a data port, but it's just a power port that goes through the USB connection. So you want to connect this here, sorry, wrong one. This one here, guys, this is the one where we saved that TGZ file on here. So remember, do not uncompress this, leave it compressed. As you download it, as you see it, just add it onto this. And plug it into one of these two ports on here. Now, once you've done that, the next step I want you to do is to reboot. So go into the menu of your Cerbo GX. So we go into the settings. There is a little bit of a delay in this when you go into through the portal. I think it's in general, yes, and then click on reboot. Do that once and then wait until your screen starts up. Now it won't necessarily start to the home screen that you'll see here. It'll start to a similar screen to what you see there. Whatever the screen was open back last, it's there. I like to make sure, go to the home screen and make sure it's all working, everything's running, okay, it's all there. And then go back into the settings again and reboot it a second time. Right, settings, general, and then reboot. So do that twice, guys. After the second time, wait till it's fully booted up, go back to your screen. Remove this out of your Cerbo GX. So you want to remove this. And then what I want you to do is go to your screen, go to your Cerbo GX, go back into the menu, go into settings. Now in this case you're probably going to find, I believe by default, settings will now be right up the top. So if you see your settings right up the top, it's the first one in the options to choose, you know it's all worked fine. Otherwise, there could be a chance it may still be down below, so don't worry if it's not there, go down below and click on settings. Now the next one, we need to scroll right down to the last one, right down the bottom, and we should see, if you have an successful install, I see no reason, if you follow the instructions that I've just given to you, you should then see another, here we go, package manager. Here we go, guys, so we've got a package manager. So click on that. Alright, so that's what you've just installed. This is what the setup helper is. This is the package setup here. Now let's go from the top down. Automatic GitHub downloads. Alright, so it basically, what this means is that it will do a update every so often if you're connected. You can turn that feature off if you want to, or you can select it once fast. I'm going to select it once fast and then normal. So what that will do now is it's going to check on the server to see if there's any updates for the GUI mods. Now I'll be able to show you that more closely and explain that to you once we go into the active packages. Now in your case, you're probably going to have nothing in the active packages. So the next thing you want to do after you've select this fast, then normal, or just fast only, wait till it's gone through this. Normally, there we go. Once you got fast is gone, you see fast is disappeared. So once that is gone, then we go into the inactive packages. And in here, we can then select what we want to install. Now, because I've already installed GUI mods, it's not on here because it's in the active packages. So, but these are the other packages you can install. Shutdown monitor is a good one. If you want to install that one, all that does is gives you an option to shut down the unit if you want to completely shut it down without having to pull the power cord out of it. But so what you need to do then, well, for example, let's for example pretend that what I'm clicking on now is GUI mods. So we're going to click on this, and then we want to make sure that latest is highlighted in here, and then add shutdown monitor, and then we want to proceed. Okay, then we'll proceed, and what that does is then it will install it, and it will then show up in the active packages. Now I've already installed this, guys, so I'm not going to do it again, but let's go into the active packages. After you've done that, it'll come up in here. So you've got setup helper. Make sure you never uninstall setup helper. Okay, if you uninstall setup helper, it can be difficult to remove it because setup helper is your package manager. Alright, so now as you can see, we've got GUI mods. It'll come up here, GitMat. In your case, you're going to have GitHub. You'll probably have 5.13 if you're doing it now at the time this is filming in February 2022. Otherwise, you might have version 6 or whatever, and it'll be stored. Now, what's stored means what's stored on the actual Cerbo GX itself. Now, in order to install this, it has to be stored on the Cerbo GX. So you need all these highlighted right through here. Now I've got one here, I've got a generator connect here that I purposely did not update because I wanted to show you how to install and how to update. So I'm going to do this now. You do the same thing with the GUI mods, there's no difference. So if you're in the GUI mods, it's the same thing. So what we want to do here now is again make sure latest is clicked on here. So we know the latest is version 2.4. Alright, so installed. You're going to have nothing in installed. So what you want to do first thing is click download. And click it twice. And then click download generator connector. Again, click it twice. It's going to download this. Okay, now that it's downloaded, it'll come up here, the latest version on here. Then you want to click on install. So this is exactly the same on any of the packages that you do, even including the GUI mods. Click on this twice, proceed, and there it is, it's installed. You can see now that's version 2.4. I had version 2.3 on here, now we've got version 2.4. So once you go back into the package, now this is good to come into periodically, it's a tongue twister, to check to see if there's any updates. So once you've got your Cerbo GXs connected, my Cerbo GX is connected via the Victron 4G LTE USB dongle. The main two you want to make sure that is installed in your active packages is the GUI mods and the setup helper. You only need those two, okay, the GUI mods and the setup helper. Once you've done that, we need to then go back to, well actually you can go to your pages screen. And when you go into the pages screen, it's not going to show up exactly as what you see here. For example, if you're looking in here, see that shoreline, that bar, that graph. So it shows you can just barely see. See there's a little icon there. It's just moving across. Now if there was more shore power coming through here, say it was like 700-800 watts or something, that will be right up here. And when it reaches the peak, it'll go into this purple here. Same as you can see my Victron Multiplus, you can see here. Now this is different. One way it's discharging, another way it's charging, same as here. So that's why it's got the line in the middle. So your graph will actually start from either from this line here, it'll either go to the left, I think, if it's discharging, and it'll go to the right if it's charging. I believe this one here, it goes to the right, given it's corresponding how much power the AC loads, and on the left how much power is coming through. So it's it's a graph you can quickly check on to see if you're close to the peak of your devices. So these are very handy to set up for that reason, and I'm going to show you how you set that up. But you're not going to have this on your screen after you've got your GUI mods installed. So guys, that's as easy it is to install the GUI mods, but we need to configure it now. In order to configure it, again we go back into settings, and then where we need to go now is we need to go into display and language. And in display and language, you've got an additional folder here called GUI Mods. So click on that one. And in here, you can now adjust how you want your GUI mods to show up on your screen. So if you want it exactly the same as mine, you can follow what I've got here. So I've got show tile overview. I've got move settings to the top of the device list. So remember I showed you before, after you first install the setup packager, GUI mods, your settings will be right at the top and not down but below. So you can actually have it, if you prefer it down below, you just untick that. Show relay overview. I'm not using any of the relays. For example, if I had a generator that's using the relay to start or stop, or if I'm using a relay, for example, for version 2.80, you can set a relay to have a fan come on between certain temperatures, above a certain temperature, and switches off. Well, then you could probably set that up, turn that on. I don't know what that will do. I don't know what additional screen that will show you. I haven't explored that area. Now, another one that's really important I recommend to select is this show boat and motorhome overview. You want to make sure that's selected because that gives you an additional screen that I showed you earlier on, that second one. Remember, it had all the graphs on the right hand side of all my 6 temperature sensors. You need to highlight that one to show that one. Show enhanced mobile overview. I'm not sure exactly what that means, whether that means it shows an enhanced overview if you're viewing it by mobile phone. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't tried to see what happens if I turn that off. That was on by default, so I left that on. Use enhanced flow overview. I think the enhanced flow overview, what that does is shows you the direction of power. So if you've got a solar panel connected in, it'll show the power coming from the solar panel into your inverter or into your battery, whatever. And same as the inverter, you got shore power. It'll show the power coming through, and it'll show you which way that the power is directed. That's a good one to make sure it's highlighted as well. I don't know if that one's highlighted by default. You've got another one here, use enhanced grid parallel flow overview. I don't know exactly what that one is. I haven't tried that one thus far. Show tanks on flow overview. You want to turn that off. If you don't have any tanks connected, what I mean by tanks is that, you know how you can monitor the levels of your tanks, whether it's water, grey water, fuel, diesel, whatever, then you want to make sure that is ticked on. I'm not using any tanks, anything monitoring volume, water, anything like that, so I've got that turned off. But the next one you definitely want to make sure it's selected is show temperatures on flow overview. So that is a setting that shows you the temps that's on the flow overview. And next thing, after I've gone through and showed you this, I'm going to show you how you connect that Ruuvi tag on here, how you set them up. They're quite easy actually. And then the next one here, we scroll down, shorten tank names. Okay, so if I was using tank overflow, I would select that to shorten the names so that it doesn't look too busy. Too busy is the word. The next one is quite an important one to set up. Now remember at the start of the video that I showed you that there was those AC input limits presets. When I clicked on the one on the left, the top left where it should shore power, adjust the amount of power that comes in from shore power. Now that's a unique feature that the Multiplus, the Victron Multiplus has got. So if you own a Victron Multiplus, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. Well, in here, you can go in here. If you click on this little arrow just to the right here, click on it twice if you're using this one. You can go to plus or minus and set whatever you want that preset 1 to be. So it all depends on where you live, and once you select it, you go to highlight and you go to the next one. So you can set all this. Now, the next one, so that one's pretty well self-explanatory, particularly as I mentioned if you got the Multiplus. Now this is one here that a lot of people get confused on. Most of you guys out there will be working on Fahrenheit. Here in Australia we use Celsius. So in here you can change your temperature scale from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and that's where you do it. Time format, okay, whether you want a 12-hour or 24-hour time format, you just select it in here. So as you can see, it's quite powerful. It's quite a lot. This one's a good one as well. Tiles on flow overview, inactive tiles show dimmed. So if the tiles are not used, for example, I didn't have the solar panel connected, so that section of solar panel where it showed the solar panel supposedly is showing that it's a bit dim, but honestly I don't really notice much difference, to be honest. Now the last one is the power gauge. This is important as well. This is the one where you set how you want that gauge to look. Remember I showed you that gauge before in the main screen that showed you where you can quickly glance and it'll show you like a graph that runs along and shows you how much of that power it's using. Well, in here is where you set that. So depending on what multi-control you're using, you want to find out what the peak power is. So that gauge goes into the red. So if you know if your gauge turns red, that you're on that peak power. Now I've only got mine. I've got the Multiplus 12 volt 2000. It's the compact version. Okay, it's the 240 volt compact version. Now that's just what I've got it set at the moment. I know that's not ideal, but for me that's fine. I'm going to change this to so that reflects the proper range what it should be. So that's where you set that, guys. So that's all to do with that graph. So if you set this accurately, then I know if I'm pushing 1550 watts, that line will go into green yellow. If I hit 1600 watt, it'll be yellow red. If I go 1700 watt, then gauge will go to red maximum. That's when I really know I'm pushing the inverter too much in. Maximum power loads on output, that's the output. I don't have it set here. You don't have to set it. If you don't set it, that graph will not show up. That's why on the output it didn't show. But let's keep going down below and show you what else I've set up. Maximum power, grid feed, etc. Maximum power, your multi-quadro charger, so 1600 watts. It's a 2000 VA, which is 1600 watts. Maximum power PV charger, that's your solar panel. You can set that to watts as well. I've got a number of solar panels that range from 200 watts right up to 300 watts. I don't need to know that. I don't bother about setting that, but I probably will just to test it to see what it's like. Maximum PE inverter on AC input. I got no idea what that is. I'm not sure how that one is. Maximum battery discharge current. I find that my battery can use a maximum discharge rate of 140 amps with very little issues, so I've set that on here. And then we go to the maximum battery charge current. I've set at 70 amps, as you can see. DC load, okay, that's your 12 volts, so you know what your DC load is. That records your 12 volt side of things, such as the fridge that I explained before. You can actually set the maximum on that. I'm not going to bother setting a maximum on that. Maximum DC charge power, you can set that as well. I don't bother with that. All that means if you set this up, it'll show up on the graph. And that's it, guys. Once you've done that, she's all installed. All you have to do then later on in the future is go into your package manager and check for updates, install the updates as they come up. Now here's that, remember I showed you that section where if you highlight that caravan input one, this is it here. So as you can see in here remotely, I could click on this. It's not going to do it now because I'm using a digital multi-control. That's the biggest disadvantage if you're using a digital multi-control, is that now I cannot remotely connect to that. Now if I'm going away camping and I'm going to be away from the vehicle for a while, I'm probably just going to disconnect. All you have to do is just disconnect that digital multi-control, and then I'll be able to access this through this menu on my phone if need be. So that's something that I will be doing. You can see it's float mode, etc., so on. And then we go back to this. So you still get this standard screen as you see here that you got before. And then we go back to this overflow screen. And if I click on here, I'll show you now. Remember we set those current limits, 4, 5, 7, 10, and so on. You can also go -1, like if I select the 4 and I want to be actually 3, you can go to 3, and you can see there's a new one there. Once you've done that, your current limit's 3, 4, you want to go 3, then you just clicked on accept. I can click on accept now, but it won't accept it because the multi-control is overriding it. As you can see there, the limit is still on 4. So again in here, turn on, off, inverter only, charger only, and we all be done through here, and that's all part of the GUI mods. So guys, I know this is a long video, but like I said, I wanted to show you from start to finish all the way through. Now if you're using the HD70, awesome screen to have this. These numbers are quite big. I find it's a little bit overpopulated with the HD50, so I recommend guys to upgrade to the HD70 if you can afford to, or if you're starting out from scratch and you haven't bought it, pay the extra and get the HD70 screen guys. It's so much better for this, because all these writings down here, 242.4 and that, they're a little bit small in the 5-inch screen. But guys, if you're young and you've got perfect eyesight, you'll probably find it's not a problem. Okay, now next thing we want to do is to install these Ruuvi tags. When you purchase these Ruuvi tags, the first thing you want to do is they've got like a little plastic tag on there, and what that is just stops the battery from contacting and turning it on, so it saves the power of the battery. So you know when you get your Ruuvi tags that they will be fully charged. So pull that tag out, bring it close to your Cerbo GX. Make sure your Cerbo GX is flashing the blue light. If that's not flashing, what I want you to do is pull the power out, your Cerbo GX, wait a minute, plug it back in, and that should get your Bluetooth up and running then. And once you've done that, to get your Bluetooth, in my case I've got 4 of them, to get them to work, so make sure it's within range, go back into settings, go into the menu, and I think it's settings, go into settings, and make sure Bluetooth is switched on. There should be another option in here somewhere called Bluetooth. Go in here, first thing I want you to do, make sure that's selected. By default it should be selected. Now that's not the only one. We then need to go scroll right down the bottom till you get to input output. See here, you see input output. It'll be just above your package manager. I want you to select that one and then select Bluetooth sensors. Now by default this is going to be unenabled, right? Once you enable this, then you're going to see your Ruuvi tags show up. And what you need to do is to turn them on as well, because by default that'll be turned off. So turn that one on, your Ruuvi tags will show up pretty much straight away. Turn them on like so. Once you've turned them on, then name them, and all you do to name them is just go into the menu. So we don't need to go into settings this time, just go into the menu and click on, for example, these will be named Ruuvi dot blah blah blah, whatever it is. If you click on this one, and I think if you go into setup, see, it's either setup or device, you go into the name. Oh, in here, this is a good one. You can actually set it to what type it is. There's the battery, fridge, or generic. And what that does is just makes that section, that panel, a different color. So obviously it looks like we need to go into device. And yes, here it is here, and this is the device. So all you need to do now is just name, just click on this one here, call it whatever you want, and that's all you have to do. And once you've done that, find a good location to install, and that's it. All done, guys. As simple as that. And then when you go back to your main screen, you will see your temperatures all show up along the bottom here. And that's it. It's easy as that, guys. I don't think I've missed anything else. Let me know how you go. If you follow exactly instructions as I've shown you here, you should have exactly the similar screen as what you see here on your Cerbo GX. So guys, thanks for watching. I hope this helped you out a lot, and let me know how you go. So till next time, cheers.